everyone. We thank you for coming out today to join us on our Workforce Development Incentives and Programs Workshop. The City of Chicago has put in place numerous initiatives to increase the number of skilled residents in growing industries. We're partnering here today with Chicago Workforce Partnership as well as Department of Family and Support Services to explain to you today what incentives we have in place and programs we have in place for the development of the workforce, as that is a high priority for all of us. Our first requirement that we will speak of is actually an ordinance requirement in our municipal code, which is section 92330, and that's called the Residency Requirement. This is an ordinance provision that we put in our construction contracts that are valued at $100,000 or more. And what that ordinance requirement is that we utilize at least 50% of the labor hours by Chicago residents, and that we use at least 7.5% of those labor hours by Project Area Residents. Those percentages that we have in place are not intended to limit or deter any fuller utilization. You're absolutely welcome to use more, and we encourage that you use more, but those are the requirements in the ordinance. Contractors have to submit to us residency records and certified payroll records for us to determine that these compliance measures have been met, and any failure to meet those requirements without any proof to the city that you've made a good faith effort could result in liquidated damages. 1 to 20% of the approved contract value for each percentage shortfall, and damages cannot be lowered. Our next incentive would be the city-based business incentive. The city-based business incentive applies to all contracts, city-funded contracts, I should specify, that are valued at $100,000 or more. And this incentive is for local businesses, also local businesses that employ city residents, especially those that are socio-economically disadvantaged. The percentages of incentives here are now up. It used to be 2, 4, and 6. Now it is 4, 6, and 8%. And the way that works is you get 4% incentive if you're a city-based business that conducts your day-to-day business operations at a facility that is actually located in the city of Chicago. It's employment for the majority of your full-time, regular employees, non-labor hour employees. You can be eligible for 6% if you meet that 4% incentive requirement, and at least 50% of full-time employees are also city residents. And you meet the 8% requirement if you meet both the 4% and 6% incentive, and the majority of city resident employees reside in a socioeconomically disadvantaged area of the city. If a contractor actually fails to remain eligible at the time of closeout, the contractor can be fined an amount equal to 3 times the amount of the bid incentive that was allocated, unless the contractor can actually demonstrate to us that due to circumstances beyond their control, for good cause, they were unable to remain eligible for this incentive. Our next incentive is diverse workforce and management incentive, and in this incentive, we encourage businesses to employ a diverse workforce and have diverse management. The workforce would include your full-time employees. The management would be owners, partners, and any others who have some sort of fiduciary duty in the business. This incentive applies to all city-funded contracts that are valued at $100,000 or more. Prime contractors can qualify for both incentives. That's the management, the diverse workforce, and the diverse management. On the slide here, you'll see the percentages. If you have 10 to 20% of your prime contractor management that is diverse, you qualify for 0.5% of the contract-based bid. If you have greater than 20% but up to 40%, you qualify for 2% of the contract-based bid. If you're greater than 40%, you qualify for 4% of the contract-based bid. And for your workforce that is diverse, 10% to 20% is 2%. Greater than 20% just so you know, diverse as defined in section 292407 of the municipal code includes African Americans, Black, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and other groups or other individuals found by the board to be socially and economically disadvantaged and have suffered some sort of racial, ethnic, or gender discrimination and decreased opportunities to compete in the Chicago area market. Our next incentive is the equal employment opportunity. The equal employment opportunity actually encourages bidders to commit to utilizing minority and female journey workers, apprentices, and laborers. This incentive is found in the construction contracts that are city funded, valued at $100,000 or more. Bidders can propose minority and female utilization commitments for the project up to 15% for female workers, which is now up from 10%, 70% for minority workers, which is currently up from 50%. The utilization can be higher, but is capped for purposes of canvassing. The contractor can receive 150% credit towards their commitment for each labor hour worked by employees who are socio and economically disadvantaged. The city currently has a goal of at least 25% of work hours to be performed by minority journey workers and apprentices, and at least 7% by women journey workers and apprentices. The city's goal is to have at least 40% of the work hours performed by minority laborers and at least 7% by women laborers. The contractor is obligated to meet the total commitments that they provide in each category on the contract, or they may be subject to liquidated damages. Again, you have to submit weekly payrolls to demonstrate your compliance. Minority as defined for the canvassing formula is Black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian specific, and North Meridians, Asian Indians. Our apprentice utilization bid incentives. Contractors can earn an incentive up to 1% that can be based on a future bid. So what's different is you earn credit through the contract with this one, and you can apply this percentage credit to something that you bid on in the future. It applies to all city-funded construction contracts with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. An apprentice has to be a sponsor into an apprenticeship training program that's authorized by a union to sponsor apprentice and either enrolled or graduated from a construction technology training program administered by city colleges or graduated from a high school operated by CPS. If 5 to 10% of your total labor hours are performed by an apprentice, you qualify for a 0.5% future bid incentive. If 11 to 15% of those total labor hours are performed by an apprentice, you qualify for a 1% bid incentive. The definition of labor hours under 292335 of the municipal code means the total hours of workers receiving an hourly wage who are directly employed at the work site. Labor hours shall include hours performed by workers employed by the contractor and all subcontractors working at the work site. Labor hours shall not include hours worked by non-working foremen, superintendents, owners, and workers who are not subject to prevailing wage requirements. This earned credit certificate is valid for up to 3 years from the date that it's actually issued, and it shall not be applied towards any future contract after that expiration date. The contractor may apply the earned credit certificate on multiple future construction project contract bids during the 3-year period in which the certificate is valid, but you may only receive one bid incentive for bid evaluation purposes on one construction project contract award. So the question might be, what happens if the contractor has bid on multiple contracts? The way that works is that if the contractor applies the earned credit on multiple construction projects bids, its bid and is the lowest and responsible bidder on more than one of those construction projects, then the earned certificate can be applied to the construction project that was first advertised. If there were multiple projects advertised at the same time, then it will be applied to the one construction project that has the greatest dollar value. Lastly, we have our ex-offender apprentice utilization incentive, and it works similar to our apprentice utilization incentive. Bidders can earn an incentive for up to 1% that can be based on a future bid. It applies to all city-funded contracts with an estimated value of $100,000 or more. An ex-offender apprentice must be sponsored into an apprenticeship training program that is authorized by a union to sponsor the apprentice and participating in a workforce development program funded by the city colleges. 5 to 10% of the total labor hours performed by the apprentices can result in a 0.5% earned credit. 11 to 15% can result in a 1% earned credit. We work closely with the Department of Family and Support Services, who works with delegate agencies to actually recruit, screen, and refer potential qualified candidates. All candidates go through an initial intake process where their eligibility for this program will be determined, and it will be at the city's discretion. Any resources that are needed can be found on the City of Chicago's procurement website. It talks about all our incentives, all of our programs, and all of our regulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we'll have Ray Bentley from the Chicago Workforce Partnership. And I'm not sure where Juan is. I'm not sure if Juan's coming, so if not, it'll be the questions will start right after. Okay. Oh, I can give you this. Oh, sorry. And just press it down there.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ray Bentley. I'm the Chief Community Officer for Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Patricia Moore, from the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. Patricia, would you just raise your hand so they know who you are? And Patricia Moore is actually a business relations and economic development specialist with our office. She has a unique role in that the partnership serves as the administrator for the public workforce system in Chicago and Cook County. And we have, we consider two customers. One customer is a job seeker. So we actually work with the unemployed and underemployed throughout the city of Chicago to help them become gainfully employed in jobs that offer living wages and opportunities for growth and development and benefits. But on the other hand, we're here to serve you. So if you're an employer, we also help you. Matter of fact, under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, employers give just as much service as the job seekers do. So that was a major change of the new legislation, which was approved back in 2014. And so Patricia is part of a unit that is kind of new to the idea of workforce, in which she actually spends all of her time working with employers, helping them to get the resources they need so they can be successful in their businesses in terms of helping economic development throughout Chicago and Cook County. With that being said, we're the second largest local workforce development area in the country. Sometimes I hear we're the first, but right now it's claimed second because that's on this document. And we don't actually deliver the services directly, although in my case I do some direct service. But for the most part, our work is delivered through 53 delegate agencies. So in other words, we contract our work out to delegate agencies, which may be nonprofits, for-profits, they may be local organizations, they may be national organizations. We work with at least 3 national organizations that provide services under our umbrella. And so the idea is that we have 10 what we call one-stop centers located throughout Chicago and Cook County. And these centers are high-volume locations where we get a huge amount of traffic of people who are looking for work. We get direct referrals from the Illinois Department of Employment Security. So as people receive their UI, put in their UI claim, they're referred automatically to us for placement services. And we also help them with vocational training as well. So in many cases, people may have worked for a company. They may have been laid off, and what they're realizing is that their skill sets may be kind of obsolete. We can actually help retool them and get them back out to the workforce through vocational training resources. We've got 3 sector centers. So The idea of a sector center is that it's really an employer-focused play location, and we have chosen 3 industries that we focus those sector center resources on, and that's the information technology area, healthcare, and the hospitality and retail area. These are 3 high growth areas in the city of Chicago and Cook County, where we have huge demand for need for people to work, and job opportunities, job openings, and growth opportunities. And so we focus on those 3 industries. There's actually 7 total industries. I believe it's further in the presentation, so I'll get to that. Since we took place, we came into existence in 2012. So before that time, the city of Chicago had their own workforce development agency. Cook County had its own workforce development agency. Under the mayoral leadership at that time and the county board president leadership, they merged their resources into one agency. And also Northern Cook County merged their resources and created the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, which is actually a nonprofit. We're not a governmental entity. We're a nonprofit entity. We were spun off, and as a result, we've been able to leverage our relationship into a lot more grant funds and resources that help us to do our job. So we placed about 40,000 people, and actually it's going up since that time. We serve about 140,000 people per year that walk through our doors, and we train approximately 15,000 folks through our voucher system. We call them individual training account vouchers, which we will actually pay up to $8,000 for somebody to return to school. Once we've identified that this individual needs additional training to compete in today's workforce.
College school?
Pardon?
College school?
Some college, yes, we do pay for some college. So we can, I can go into a little more detail about that. Let's do a Q&A.
Okay.
This is really important. We average about $62 million in our budget. That's not all the federal dollars. That includes the private funds that we've been able to raise through our philanthropic sources. And that, I think it says there, $40 million leverage funding over the last 3 years. We received 1 grant from the Walmart Foundation alone that totaled $10.9 million. And since it expired, we've used all the funds, but as a result of that relationship, we were able to actually establish Chicago Retail and Sector Center, which was a real benefit to the residents of Chicago. Our vision is to make sure that every person has an opportunity to build a career, and that every business has the talent to grow, compete in the local economy. Mission statement kind of follows that same line of thinking. We're here to help individuals to see their full potential as employees. We're here to make sure that businesses can use innovative solutions for the human talent needs so that they can advance their companies. The system overview may look a little complicated for you, but if you start at the top of the chart, you're going to see the employee, you're going to see the job seeker. You're going to see that we show a training provider under the employer, which is a little different. But the training provider, ideally, most of the time they're on the job seeker side. I'm going to explain one exception to that rule down in a few minutes, but the training provider typically is on the job seeker side, and basically that's where that voucher comes in, and other training opportunities that we have for employees, for job seekers as well, to help them become competitive in today's environment. And a career coach. That's somebody to help the individual to make sure, a lot of times when people lose their jobs, they lose their confidence. They're not really sure where they fit anymore in the job market. With technology going as fast as it is, they really do need some help and some support. So this career coach is the glue. It helps keep all the pieces together, make sure that the individuals are participating in whatever training they're doing, making sure that they're getting used to the idea of interviewing again, making sure that their resume meets the requirements of employers, making sure they don't hit any barriers to employment. And if they do have barriers, making sure those barriers are addressed in a timely fashion so that individuals can go out and compete and start earning money again. On the business services side, you got people like Pat here who work with the employers, but every center out there also has its own business service representative. And that individual is also charged with knowing the local employer community, engaging with businesses in their own community, and making sure that employers' needs are met. So if you work at, if you go to visit one of our American Job Centers on the north side, which is at Truman College, there's going to be a business services representative there that will help you as an employer to meet your job needs. If you go to the south side, you're in 43rd College, you'll find somebody at the Mid-South American Job Center that does the same. If you're at Daly College, you'll find the same. So there's 5 American Job Centers throughout Chicago, and we can give you that information later to make sure that you can reach out to somebody, and Pat can actually support you as well. 5 in Chicago.
In Chicago.
Right.
Yes.
This is Chicago representation.
Sure.
So We can help you with employer development services, and we can help you with talent acquisition. Technical assistance might be that you need some help understanding how do I address ADAA issues? How do I make sure I'm compliant with the Americans with Disability Act? It could mean how do I make sure I address EEOC concerns? It may be something as simple as how do I get a tax credit under WOTC? These are technical issues, but oftentimes employers, especially employers in smaller shops where you don't have a full HR department, might need some assistance. So we're here to help those businesses that may lack those kind of resources so that they get it right. But you'd also be surprised at how many large corporations that have all these people still don't quite get it right. And so we're going to help them, but they got to be able to admit that they need help. I'm going to give you an example of work that we did that we're kind of proud of. I don't know if you remember, but there was a time, I can't even remember the year, Dominick's closed down all of their stores throughout Chicago and Cook County. It must have been 4,000 people impacted by that shutdown of those stores and subsequent layoff of those individuals. Well, at the same time that Dominick's was shutting down business, Mariano's was ramping up. They were opening stores throughout Chicago and Cook County. And so we partnered with Mariano's, and through our 49 delegate agencies, we were able to identify over 3,500 individuals who were good fits for Mariano's. Now imagine that they're going out on the street and try to do that themselves through social media, the kinds of problems they would have had. We actually created, through our own mechanism of our agencies and us working together with Mariano's, we pre-identified their needs, pre-screened the individuals, put those individuals in front of Mariano's in a timely fashion, and they were able to staff over 1,500 jobs. So that's how effective the system can be when you work with us to help you to cut down on the time you spend looking for individuals. Make sure you're looking at the right people, and make sure that you can expedite your needs to get people hired. So I'm a proud participant in this system. I know it works. We help people every day, employers and job seekers, to have success and move on. And then ultimately, it helps our entire environment economically to thrive. We're putting together some good things to make sure that we continue this work in some of the most challenged areas of Chicago, like the South, the West Side, and work with the mayor's office to make some of those great things happen. So, come on. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the targeted occupational program. Okay, there's some reports on here that we couldn't skip. Okay, there we go. So we actually developed what's called career pathways. I did that. We have these things called career pathways in which instead of an individual going into a job and not having any idea of what that career looks like, we try to establish career pipelines and show individuals how a job shouldn't just be a job. It should be about planning out your career life and making sure that your education, your skills, your workplace credentials match up with where you want to be in this particular industry. And therefore, we can plot out not only the entry-level job, the mid-level jobs, and the advanced-level jobs, including management, that will work you through a career, including education that you may have to attain down the road so that you can continue to advance yourself. It's the way workforce development should be. It should never be about just getting a job. It should be about figuring out your career and your pathway in life. And as you all know, the cost of college has gotten really, really expensive. So everybody's not in a position to go to college right off the bat. Some people may have to work first. But the idea being, if you have an idea of your career pathway, you can still plot your college participation out and many times take advantage of the company paying you to go to college and still advance your career in a way that makes sense for you and your family to meet your needs. We also provide targeted occupational profile sheets to our job seekers so that they get a sense of a background of what it means to work in a particular occupation. So this one page that is pulled up, this is actually outdated. We got new sheets we'd be happy to share with you. But the idea is we give the idea of the wages on there, the working conditions, promotional opportunities, and we provide the names of the training providers here in Chicago and Cook County that will actually train you and that we authorize and certify as training providers that we will pay for. So it's a one-page cheat sheet to help an individual plot out what kind of vocational training they need so that they can pursue that training and move on with their career. And then we have a Where the Jobs report in Cook County. I wish I brought some with me, but they're a really great cheat sheet. So if anybody wants access to these reports, give us a business card. We'll make sure you get access to the latest versions of these cards, these materials, because they're fantastic materials. So we utilize, but we actually have our own research team. And that team has actually identified the growth industries in Chicago, Cook County, where the jobs are. And we've identified 7 target industries and 40 target occupations that we use the resources that we have for training to fund. So we don't train in every single field there is. We don't want to train people for areas that are either going obsolete or losing their steam. We want to make sure we put the money into areas where there's growth, so that individuals have an opportunity to grow once they get there, put it in the door. There's some other tools we use, and actually Pat just gave you some folders with some great material that explain on-the-job training resources. And Pat, you might want to give a couple to these two as well. And the idea is that there's some tools in the toolkit to help you all as employers move forward with your training needs. One of those tools is called On-the-Job Training Subsidy, OJT. And the idea behind OJT is you may look at some candidates and say, this individual meets 75% of my needs, but they're still shy of 25% of what I need to fill my particular job. And so normally you might turn that individual away. If you work with us and identify an OJT, we'll actually help you recruit somebody who may not meet all of your needs, and we'll actually pay you to develop a training agenda for that individual that they can accomplish while they're on your payroll. It helps them to meet that 25% of deficit that they bring to the table. So that now you meet your needs, they become an employee, and we subsidize that so that you get the benefit of the income as well. The thing that's beautiful about it, you get to train the employees your way, so we're not trying to force you to a training provider of any sort. If you decide you want to partner them with a senior individual in your office, you can do that. If you decide you want to send them to a school, you can do that. How you spend the money to get them where they need to be is up to you. What we do hold you accountable to is what's called skills acquisition training outline, which means we've identified the deficit area, and that we're going to measure that area before we make that final payment to you of the subsidy. Pat knows this process very well. If you're interested, she can give you more details and actually help you with that process. I think I kind of told you all about this. It helps you reduce employee turnover. It's for companies that operate year-round. We do expect you to pay at least a minimum wage, and we're looking for a living wage. And this tool is better used when it's among an environment where you have a number of employees, not just a single individual. This is the best tool for that particular cause. And that is moving an individual into a process of employment that they might not normally experience if they don't qualify 100% for your position. By the way, that tool was used heavily during the recession. A lot of employers were on the fence about whether they wanted to hire during the Great Recession. This one tool made the difference. Many employers moved forward to hiring individuals during a time when they kind of insured the economy because they had the subsidy. And there's 2 other tools that Pat's going to talk to you, actually share with you. So you know about the OJT. That's for an individual that you want to consider, but you're not sure they're a good fit. There's also customized training. So say you're a new startup or you're starting a new location, and you need to look at a cadre of people. You want to move a group through. Through customized training, we can also work with you to match 50% of the training costs and help pay for that so that you can move a group of people through a training program that you customize to meet your needs. And then there's incumbent worker training. That's training for your existing employee pool. So the idea being there is we want you to be more competitive, but we want to make sure you don't go out of business because your employees don't have the skills and credentials to keep them in business. We've used this tool with such companies as CVS. They had a pharmaceutical distribution location, and the people that worked there needed a new credential under federal guidelines in order to continue to do that work. We helped upskill those individuals with that credential, and they were able to continue their jobs. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Ray. As you can see, Juan Cruz from Force Service, Chicago Department of Family and Support Services isn't here today. I'm not sure if, there was some other situation that he had at the last minute, but I do believe at the end of his presentation, no, but I can give you his information, and if you want to review his slides, and if you have questions on that, I will make sure that if you sign in, you get a copy of his information so that you can forward your questions to him. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to our two panelists, and you can, Brittany can keep that one. And if you have questions, we'll take those questions now.
Yeah, you see me chomping at the bit, right, on my list. Tell me what. You guys have questions? I'll pass the mic. Thank you very much for this information. I guess my first question is in regards to the credits, the legal credits. As a new person in procurement, small business, what does that look like? What does that percentage credit look like? Is that those incentives? Like, say I do get a $250,000 contract with the city to provide training services, and I meet some requirements that qualify for this credit. What does that look like for me as the contractor?
Okay, so there's two things going on here. One is you have an incentive on a contract, which is actually applied at the time that you apply for the contract. And what that looks like is, let's just say you're a city-based business. You meet the city-based business incentive at 4%. So at the time of the contract, you would complete an affidavit showing that you meet these requirements, and that's a percentage that's taken off of your total bid amount. That's what that looks like. So when they get ready to do the calculations to determine who is actually the lowest bidder, the amount that you bid, they would take 4% off that bid, which would actually give you an advantage.
Okay.
What the earned credit looks like is during the course of your contract, you earn these credits. Our compliance unit actually keeps track of whether or not you meet these requirements, meaning you utilize certain residents, whichever requirement you're going with, and in the future, you'll get a credit. They'll issue it to you and say you've earned up to, I don't know, let's just say it's 1%. So how that earned credit would work is when you bid for a new contract, that 1% will be taken off your bid amount. So it works the same way as the incentive that's taken up front, but you have those earned credits, you have to earn it through the contract and then apply it to a new bid, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Do I continue with my, you want me to just go through my list and then I'll hand off?
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is in regards to DFSS. Even though we didn't get to hear from Juan, what is the relationship with Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership? Because it looks like, I should say, getting into this as a trainer, I see there are some basic human needs that need to be addressed for people to be engaged and move forward. So I'm just curious, how does that work between the two agencies?
Well, two agencies receive different funding streams. They're both federal sources, but ours is through WIOA, and Department of Family Support Services receives a lot of their money through community block grants or community service grants. So the funding sources are different, which makes the charge a bit different. In many cases, they work with some of the toughest to employ folks who've been in reentry or homeless situations. And so we partner together in terms of understanding the needs, and we are mandated partners under WIOA. So we partner with them, Illinois Department of Employment Security, Department of Human Services, Illinois Department of Human Services, city colleges. We have over 30 mandated partners we work with in our American Job Centers, including Department of Family Support Services. We're all still working through the fine tuning of how that relationship looks, but we all partner pretty effectively in making sure that we can make timely referrals based on individuals' needs to the appropriate place.
Oh, very good.
And can I add probably too, the Department of Family and Support Services, they have other aspects to that individual that they take care of services for them, and you're primarily workforce, putting people back to work. And they not only put them back to work, but they help them with being homeless and, you know, probably food and all other kinds of services that they can.
So in regards to, let's say, IT training for the low-income individual, what is the requirement for a low-income individual or the individual who qualifies for this voucher?
Well, our funding streams are divided into three areas. One is dislocated workers. That's an individual who's no longer employed. Adult workers who are typically based on low income standards, which we calculate. And then there's the youth stream, which is 18 to 24-year-old youth who have barriers to employment. So that's the way that the funding stream comes, and that's the way we address eligibility for the program. Now, beyond that, individuals need to be able to successfully navigate the school process, the educational process. So the career coach will sit down with an individual and make sure we address any potential barriers to them attending class, like if they have childcare needs, if there's needs for them to do some remedial education before they go to that first class. We work with the individual to make sure that they can stay into the training environment, because what we don't want to happen is that they take advantage of the voucher if they're unable to complete their training. So there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of it's based on individual needs. One thing about the workforce development system is no individual is the same. Everybody has different issues that go on, different educational levels, different barriers to employment. We work with that individual to help make sure that they meet their needs.
Okay, and the next question I have is in regards to the actual training and the requirements of the training provider. And my question is, let's say IT, I only can speak on IT training. Do you encourage providers to bundle, or can the voucher be applied to a bundled training package that includes, maybe an entrepreneur piece to it, to a service management piece to it, along with an IT certification training?
Well,
Or do you?
we are not in the entrepreneurial business, so our training is focused on employment. But in terms of bundling, each provider brings their package to us, and then, it goes through a vetting process. And as long as it passes through that vetting process, which includes also being reviewed by the Illinois Board of Higher Education before it gets to us.
Okay.
So once the IBHE has said this is a good program and put their stamp of approval, we basically are willing to take that as meaning it's been reviewed by the educational body that does that kind of review.
Thank you. And then the question I have is in regards to the business relations piece. Is there in regards to the type of employers that someone can come in and be in do on-the-job training, customized training, could it be a government agency? Could it be a large corporation that resides in Cook County, or does it have to be a small business of a certain number of employees?
I'm going to let my colleague address that question.
Okay.
She does this every day.
Great.
Business service tools that Ray outlined for you, which some are incumbent worker, OJT, and customized training, all of those are in reimbursement programs that are available to you, and it varies on the percentage of what your reimbursement would be based on the size of your organization, how many people are employed, and so forth and so on. That's an individual discussion we'll have with you at that time. But those business service tools are open to all of our employees, whether it's small or large. I can think of one of our largest customers, like Ford, okay? So you think, why would they need help? But they do, in some instances, need help. They're to train their staff. So we don't limit to size in terms of who we can serve, but we limit the funds. So they may get less than a smaller company who comes to us who needs more services and more support. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Well, thank
when
you.
you're ready.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the mic.
Hi, thank you for the information. I have a question. I am a small business. I just transferred over. Well, I'm still doing real estate brokerage, but I started a general contracting company, and I was also trained to be a trainer for NCER, which trains kids in low-income areas in how to do construction. Reluctantly, I did it this summer, but I grew so much that it brought me here just to ask the question to see what I could do or where I could go. I met probably 25 kids this summer. Of the 25, 15 had been shot at least once. one of the kids was working for me and he missed a day of work. He got shot 5 times. He's not trying to miss work anymore. So the question becomes, in taking these kids in and trying to train them, yeah, I generally pay them above minimum wage to try to get them acclimated to what needs to happen to better their lives, better their careers. But how or what partnerships are available to help me get incentivized to bring in more kids to do this work? I have not applied for the City of Chicago to do any of their construction projects. I'm finishing up a project right now, and I would probably like to look at that avenue. So I'm open any direction, any way you can point me. You know, we're 6 degrees of separation from even our president, but you know, hey, I don't think we're gonna have to go that high. And he's kind of busy right now. So any direction you guys can point me in, it'd be great.
Okay, you said construction, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the partnership recently undertook a project with the Illinois Tollway Authority. It's called Construction Works. And the idea behind Construction Works is to create a pipeline, a talent pipeline for the construction industry, because as we know, the construction industry is going to boom. It's already booming, but it's going to boom even more as infrastructure needs and housing needs continue to grow. And so we actually act as a repository for the various apprenticeship programs, skill building training programs like what you're doing, and with the unions and with the construction projects themselves, whether it's public works projects or private projects. So we're trying to create this one place, this one portal where these needs are addressed and that people can get upskilled in a timely fashion so they can meet the needs of the industry, because as we know, many people are retiring from that particular industry at a time when there's the biggest need for it. So I can connect you with our Construction Works people, and they can kind of help you work through your particular piece of the puzzle, because I'm not equipped to do it, but our team is pretty talented, and we've been working through this, and we're having some good successes early on.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can add to that, I know in Lincoln Yards related, they have some type of program like what you're referring to, and I'm not sure if you can, you know, have a conversation with them, and maybe they can bring you in to work with them as well with that, because I met him at one of our fairs, and I brought him into the vendor fair that we had just for that reason, because he was looking for some subcontractors, you know, to do that kind of work. He told them if they put down the guns, they could come work with him. He showed them how. And, you know, you know, sometimes meeting other vendors and you all pairing together, that can help.
Perfect.
I just want to share with you that this summer I participated in the Chicago Transit Authority Small Business Development Workshop. That was really a pilot program associated with the Red Line, Purple Line modernization project. And I want to tell this gentleman about this program is that it was strategically designed for their prime construction vendors to educate local small businesses, to give them opportunities to participate and create jobs. And they're also pressing the prime contractors to create jobs, go out into these neighborhoods and providing workforce development fairs with the unions, in partnership with the unions. And I guess I just wanted to educate you on that, or share that with you. And the other question I have another question, and this is again in the technology realm. I am a seasoned technology worker, well over 20 years, and I have evolved over being outsourced and offshored, and training my offshored individuals, and that is how I got into what I'm doing today, is to help find opportunities for displaced technology workers like myself, as well as help develop others who need to be retrained, go through retraining or such, because there's such opportunity to not only in technology integration, but also my little motto is learn to manage AI before it manages you. There's going to be this huge need of a workforce to manage this technology that's coming fast and furious, being integrated into almost everything, including construction. My question is, do you keep tabs on, right now, I've heard there's this bill out there that's going to lift, and I don't want to get political, but lift the cap on H-1B visas and those things that may impact this type of program. Have you heard about this, or is that addressed, or in regards to these high-skilled technology jobs that work?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
The bill? Can you
I
say
think
the
it's
bill?
called S-386, but I did not want to get. But, so that was one question I had. And in regards to employers who are looking for, you said an employee is 70%. There, they just need an extra 30%. Are you looking for your training providers or to find these opportunities? Is there an incentive?
Not directly. In other words, we're not, it's not part of our design to have training providers lead that, but it has happened. So, we deal with the employer. So when it comes to signing on the dotted line, the employer has to do it. And they have to make the decision about who they want to use as training provider. Do the training providers develop that? Some have. So that's an option.
I kind of want to also go back to the question that you had about the children and working. Also, you might find benefit in also talking to the aldermen in your area, because I know a lot of times they have information of funding sources and things that can help you help them, in that arena. So that might be another avenue for you as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I had wanted to add to what Jackie said. Aldermen are a good contact to find a program for youth. I'm not, sure what ages you're speaking of in particular, but to the extent like they're young adults and things like that, another way for you to probably get in contact with other businesses that may do these sorts of things is, for example, like we have the construction summit, and Jackie could probably tell you more about that, but we have our assist agencies there. Our assist agencies work with, the smaller businesses, minority businesses, women businesses, things like that, to develop their workforce, to help them with obtaining business opportunities with the city. So that may be another avenue for you to work with other businesses that may be doing something similar. And again, with the apprentice utilization, like working closely with the city colleges and programs that they may have as well would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point. The city colleges is a great point, and I kind of heard it in your voice that we're kind of offshoring you to other stuff, and you might want to do this yourself. So if you want to go that route in creating your own business, or if you have a business that you're doing that with, you're just not certified with the city or whatever to do work, for city colleges, because they may offer that course. You can approach them about offering a course just for these individuals. Sometimes they do those type of things. Like I said, I'm not sure what age you're referring to. If it isn't college age, then it's CPS for youth age individuals. But, that might be an avenue for you, or you becoming an assist agency as well. And then, there are funds that they give assist agencies based upon different things, and I guess you can talk about that too. Grants and things that you can get to do that type of work, training type of work.
Well, question, I've been an entrepreneur out there on my own since about 1990. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. At the same time, unfortunately, I've developed a habit over the years of wanting to eat, so I still have to do that. So there's only so many hours in a day to do these things. Is there someone that I can call on to help build this infrastructure that's needed? Because at the same time I'm building the infrastructure, I'm up from 4 o'clock in the morning. I usually don't stop until 8 at night, every day. Holidays, birthdays, they don't mean anything to me. So I guess what I'm saying is, help.
What age group are you working with?
Breathing, I mean,
That's fair.
Honestly,
I know some of our communities are suffering, so that's fair.
Yeah.
That's a fair question. So if it is varied ages, then we can perhaps help in facilitating you through the vendor fair or the construction summit. You can talk with me. I can tell you how you can get involved in that, and I can make formal introductions to the person from city colleges and people from CPS, and then you can take it from there with them. But I would also say check with the alderman too, because that is a great source of trying to get a program going. And ultimately, if it's something the city has to do, the funding has to come from the city, and it comes from the city council and stuff. Okay. So that is a great way to get it on the books through the mayor's office, and then it trickles up and down to all of us as well.
Okay, sounds good.
And
Thank
then
you.
I'll also add that we have what we call mentorship programs in our contract, and we do encourage our prime or our big contractors to work with our smaller businesses to help them grow. And you will find that some of these larger contractors have, these training programs and different things like that, where they're trying to reach out to socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. So it's kind of like networking to find out what you do, what programs do you have. I can't do this on my own, so how can I get these children into your programs or participating in your businesses? And if there's already an established business, a small business, a minority business, maybe they're looking to bring on more workers. Maybe they're willing to train. And in training under their business, these youth will be also training under the prime, which are larger businesses. So I really do recommend getting in contact with people who are already in the game and have programs in place. That's a good place to start. And because there's a wealth of information that, just don't get out. And you just have to go around and ask people, what do you do and how do you do it?
Right.
Under the partnership, we actually have a youth program. And so, this is open to bid on a periodic basis, usually every 3 years. So that's an opportunity for you to look at becoming a youth service provider under the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership and under WIOA. We also have a number of youth providers right now who have paid work experience dollars, which means if you were to partner with one of our youth service provider agencies, you might be able to tap into those resources to help offset some of the wages that you're already paying for the training that you put the young people through. So I can make a connection to our training coordinator for you. I'll give you my card and I'll set that up. And I'd also like you to speak to one of our youth organization people as well, so they can give you what advice they can give you too. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
One more recommendation I was going to make, in addition to what Ray said, is I don't know what your area of the city is, but I know there's a wealth of resources at the Chatham Business Association to help small to mid-sized businesses to network and use the resources that you have as a team, and they'll help you with programming as well. Okay? So I would suggest you contact them.
Yeah, I'm north, east, south, and west mostly.
South and west.
Yeah, they're on the south.
They're on the south end.
Yeah, they're on the
Traveling south, yes.
Yeah, they're on the south side, but like you said, those are great.
Yeah, those are great leads.
I think what Brittany said, and getting in touch with your own alderman and trying to matriculate through there, because they may know of someone in their area that has that as well. But there are several businesses that have that out there, and they're actually looking for people, to be that training source to help them bring it in. Because we see it in the matchup when we go to the vendor fair or put on our vendor fair. We have what we call a matching component of the vendor fair, which we take businesses and match with prime contractors, and perhaps you do sub work for them. And that work could be varied based upon what they're looking for. And I do know that a lot of times they ask or mention, that's how, again, like I met that one gentleman, is he told me about a program where he had started himself, just saying, I can take you into this industry under my wings.
Right.
But he necessarily doesn't have a program. And he said, we want to do more of that, but he doesn't have a program. So maybe you are the program he's looking for, something that you already have in place that he can just contract out to you, and you all work that out. So I can give you their information as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, we definitely thank you for participating in today's workshop, and we're almost at the end of our 2019 workshops, but we will see you in 2020. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
I have Ray's business card. If you have any questions about any information in the packet that I handed out, please, my card is in there.
Yes.
It's Ray's card. And reach out to me.
Good morning, Sarah.
Patricia, yes, could you write down, did you give me a card?
No, I did not.
May I have one? Just right there. It says, I'd like to give you some information about this program. CTA, and then we are pushing Washington for applying opportunities like it is for your company. Apprenticeship, red line modernization, and eventually red line extension.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've heard of that. I've had friends that work for that. But the challenge,
Right, where's your
I
job?
work with CHA doing some of their rehab, but the kids that are working.
Oh, not the,
It's
no,
not
no, no,
for
no, this person.
40 years. No, it's not the same thing.
And
There's 40 years. And within there is like,
You're good at what you do.
everyone has construction, you got the labor, this is,
But-
it would be a lot to send to every last one of those.
there's a mental component needed that I have to.
But it's easy to get this
work with kids.
top information of where the jobs
It takes
are.
time to work with them.
So you get your card, right?
I had a kid that
Time
was,
drain and an energy drain.
yeah, I mean, there's a kid that was working with me, and he lives not too far from me. He says, Mr. G, he says, stay in today. I said, what's going on? He said, another kid over here got killed about 4 years ago, and every year